Hello writers, I'm Renee Latulippe of the Lyrical Language Lab, and today at Peek and Critique we'll be looking at some poetry for young people. So grab your cup of whatever and I'll see you back here in a minute. Okay, welcome back. As I said, today we'll be looking at poems for young people submitted by writers like you. And if you would like to submit your writing for critique as well, just click the link that you'll find in the description below, and it'll take you to a form where you can do just that. And if you like the content that I'm providing every week, please do me a favor and click that subscribe button. And don't forget to stick around until the end where I'll have your weekly writing prompt. Okay, let's get to it. Okay, our first sample comes from Joy Moore. Thank you for your submission, Joy. We have a fairly short poem here. And again, these are cold readings on my part and off-the-cuff critiques. So do keep that in mind that I may not hit every single point, but I'm going to give you my best gut reaction as I read. All right, your family is loud, droll, half, whole, kin, blood, roots, none. Same, fixed, odd, mixed, messy, neat, tough, sweet. Fight, calm, sweet bomb. Moist eyes, goodbyes. Best of bound love. Wrong, right, hold tight. All right, Joy, this is a really lovely short poem. I think that this is probably geared towards younger kids, not too young, because you do have some vocabulary in here that is skewing a bit older. So I think you're in, sort of a little nebulous area, maybe upper elementary, where they can really get this vocabulary, things like droll, kin, and larger concepts like having roots, and also making the jump from the opposites that are going on in this poem. So from same fixed to odd mixed. An older kid may be able to get that, a younger one maybe not so much. Since this poem does rhyme, I will normally first go look at the meter. And here what I'm finding is that because the lines are so short, we're not looking at an iambic or an anapestic or a trochaic meter. We're really looking at spondees here. And a spondee is two stressed beats in a row. Sure, sometimes she has some unstressed syllables because we do have some words that are more than one syllable. But for the most part, we have a lot of single syllable words, which means they're going to be stressed. So you have loud, droll, half, whole, and those are spondees. Loud, droll, right? There's not one that's stressed over the other. Half, whole. And it's like that until we get anywhere where there's a multisyllable word. For example, here at messy, neat, right? Stressed, unstressed, stress. But it doesn't matter. For me, the dominant meter here is Spondaic. So, and Joy does a really nice job of keeping that constant and sort of driving the reader from one stanza to the next. So, I want to look a bit at the pairings and see what's going on with those. Loud, droll, half, whole. So, this is a general idea of what the family can be. It can be a loud family, it can be a funny family, it can be half a family, meaning maybe there's been a separation, it can be a whole family. So right off in the first stanza, she's looking at all different types of families, both in personality and in the makeup of the family. Then we get to our second stanza, kin, blood, roots, none. And this stanza throws me off a little bit. There's kin, there's blood, meaning perhaps blood relatives. Roots, none. Do those two things go together, or does roots go with kin and blood? Or is it saying there are no roots, meaning maybe there's a mixed family that comes from not bloodlines, from different other families, and they've come together to make up one family. In that case, I would like some sort of different relationship. It's even with punctuation between roots and none, because I'm not really understanding the relation between that line and kin blood. Kin blood, okay, I get it. They're related by blood. Roots, none. And I'm not really sure if that can be true, because everyone has roots. They may not be tied together, but there are roots. So in some ways, that line, for me, I would want to take a look at that and see if there can be another pairing that's a little clearer. Same, fixed, odd, mixed. So now we're getting into some opposites here. We've got same, meaning maybe the same roots, the same blood. It's fixed, it's a strong family, or we have that odd family that we were already talking about a bit between the half and the whole, or roots none, where a family is made up of different elements from different places. And again, this is a nice way to sum up all the things that a family can be in this stanza. And then we get back to some opposites right in one line: messy, neat, tough, sweet. Personality, family personality. Fight, calm, sweet, bomb. All the things a family can be. For me, fight doesn't really work here, because up until now, these first lines have been more adjectives. In fact, yes, they're adjectives. Kin, so. But fight doesn't really fit that format for me. So I might look for another word that is the opposite of calm. And I like this stanza because it's really about, no matter what happens, the explosions in the family, a family still can be a sweet bomb, regardless of the shenanigans and the chaos that can ensue inside a family. But yes, the fight is not really working for me in this context. Moist eyes, goodbyes. Here I'm starting to see a progression. Maybe the kids have grown up and they're on their way, but I feel like it's a really big leap, or it could be a death as well. Either way, I find it to be a really big leap from all the things a family can be to this missing of something, or something going away. And I'm not really sure, not that you can't have, because it's part of a family too, right? Somebody going away, no matter how they go away. But I'm not really sure how we make that leap. I feel like I want a run-up to this, something in the middle between the fight, calm, sweet bomb and the moist eyes, goodbyes. Best of bound love. Up until this time, I think your rhymes are strong. The of is just, for me, not strong enough. And also, bound love. I think that's a tough concept. I get it. A love, you're bound by this love. But I'm not sure if a kid is really going to get that. I think that might be a jump. So I might look at that stanza and see how you can get that same idea across, that no matter what, a family's love is the best thing. So those two stanzas right there, I think we need to look more closely at. Wrong, right, hold tight. And I do like this ending. So no matter what it is with this family, hold on to it. It's the only family you've got. I like this concept. So for me, I think that what we need to do here, Joy, is just really, really focus on the progression. I have no problem with the rhythm, the word choices. I think they're really solid. And I think you just need to look at the progression of the poem, because there are a couple of those big jumps that I would want filled in a little bit. So I don't know if you want to expand it or just change those particular stanzas to make it a little more cohesive and a little more, as I guess they would say in Italian, say dolce, the passaggio dolce, I guess a sweet step from one stanza to the next, so that we don't have, the boom, boom, boom. And also look if maybe some of these are too similar. So we also don't want to go the other way, whereas we don't have a big enough of a jump. For example, the kin, blood, roots, none, and same, fixed, odd, mixed, for me are very similar in concept. So that might be one where you just delete one of those and instead add one someplace else before the moist eyes, goodbyes, for example. So for me, it's just looking at the structure of it, the progression of the poem. And I think this is a really solid a solid effort. So well done, Joy, and thank you again for submitting. All right, let's go on to poem number 2. And now for something completely different. It even requires jazz hands. We have a poem by Lucrezia Piero, and she says she's interested in writing a book of poems for children. Now, what I find interesting about this is that our first poem by Joy is a very mature poem for a little bit of an older crowd, whereas Lucrezia is going to the other end of the spectrum and writing what we call giggle poetry, which means silly poems that kids normally love, and they're just fun poems. While I am not personally a huge fan of giggle poetry, I do think it absolutely has a place. Kids love it, for one thing, so, why not? And I think it's really good for helping kids get into, especially reluctant readers and reluctant writers, getting them into the world of writing through poetry and through rhymes. Kids respond to rhymes, and they're going to respond more if they're funny. I mean, Shel Silverstein made a career out of that, right? And so did Dr. Seuss. So there's a place for everything. So let me give this a read and see what we've got. Benjamin Phlox keeps boogers in a box. He hides them in his desk. Benjamin Phlox sneaks boogers in his box while working on his tests. Benjamin Phlox's boogers in the box are hard and rough as stone. Benjamin Phlox's boogers in the box make everybody groan. Benjamin Phlox lost his boogers box, which everyone thought was dandy. Mary Jo took them home and made them into candy. Benjamin Phlox, do you miss your box? I really feel for you. Have some candy. They're really dandy. Thanks. I'll have a few. Okay, that's completely disgusting. So kids are probably going to like that. Lucrezia, overall, I think that your meter and rhyme is pretty good. There are some glitches here and there. What you have done here is that repetition, the constant repetition of boogers in a box, which is funny. And of course, there's the gross out factor, which kids are going to like. So with this kind of a poem, it is important to keep the rhythm really consistent. So let's take a look at that. Benjamin Phlox keeps boogers in a box. Benjamin Phlox keeps boogers in a box. Right off the bat, we already have some variation. So let me scan that, see what we have. And again, as always, I just use the / key and the small u, and I scan a poem as I read it, just kind of going back and forth on the keyboard. So we have Benjamin Phlox keeps boogers in a box. Benjamin Phlox keeps boogers in a box. Boogers in a... Yeah, I'm not reading that as iambic there. I'm going to say Benjamin Phlox keeps boogers in a box. For me, those are unstressed. Then we have unstressed. He hides them in his desk. So that's iambic. Benjamin Phlox sneaks boogers in his box. So the same as the first line, which has those variations, while working on his tests. So we have 2 lines of iambic, the second and fourth line. However, the first and third lines want to be dactylic, which is stressed, unstressed, unstressed. But it's not really going that way. We've got Benjamin Phlox keeps boogers in a box, and I'm not really sure where the meter is there. So if you're going to go dactylic, it's got to be ba-da-da, 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 ba. He hides them in his desk. And I don't mind the mixing up of those 2 meters. I think it can work. But if you do that, it's got to be super consistent, because mixing meter is not an easy thing to do. And it's not usually even advisable. But if you do it really consistently, it could work. So Benjamin Phlox keeps boogers in a box. He hides them in his desk. Do you hear that? Where that first line is really long and I'm not really sure where I'm going with it. Benjamin Phlox sneaks boogers in his box while working on his tests. And then I can rest into that really consistent iambic line. Benjamin Phlox's boogers in a box again. So all of those lines with the boogers need to be looked at. You need to find a way to change that meter, to revise them so that they are all the same. And many times what I find is the naming. When people use names in their rhyming picture books or poems, it's the name that's messing you up. So sometimes just changing the name can help you smooth out the meter. You know, if you have a name that is Spondaic, for example, Ben Phlox keeps boogers in a box. That wouldn't work because that's just really hard to work with because you've got Ben Phlox. That's a spondee, 2 stressed syllables. Benjamin Phlox, that's dactylic. And so it can work, but you just need to get the rest of the line to get in line. So let's take a moment to see what a solution could possibly be. I rhymed. Okay, I just took a moment to see how we could work with Benjamin Phlox because it's a really fun name. And I came up with a little sample stanza to show you what I mean by keeping the meter, even though it's mixed meter, keeping it consistent. Meaning those first and third lines are going to be dactyls and the second and fourth lines are iambic. So just for kicks and giggles, I wanted to show you how that could happen. It does take a lot of work, however, I'm going to warn you. But it's work that needs to be done because consistency is key. I'll say it a million times. Consistency is key when you're dealing with rhyme and meter. So, Benjamin Phlox has a big box of boogers. He hides it in his desk. Benjamin Phlox adds more snot to his box while working on his tests. Kind of a tongue twister, but off the top of my head, this is what I've got. So, we have in our first line, Benjamin Phlox has a big box of boogers. That's dactylic. Benjamin Phlox has a big box of boogers. It's dactylic tetrameter. Plus, we have that extra unstressed beat on the end, which is okay. It's called a feminine ending. It ends on a beat that goes down instead of up. And that's all right. It's not going to ruin anything. And then you have your second line, which I did not touch. Iambic. He hides it in his desk. Iambic trimeter. So there are 3 stressed beats. These are also things you need to keep consistent. If your first and third lines have 4 feet, they all have to have 4 feet, your first and third lines. If your second and fourth lines are iambic trimeter, then all of your second and fourth lines need to be iambic trimeter. Okay? That's what we're working for. Now we've got this other line here. Benjamin Phlox adds more snot to his box. Dactylic, it matches perfectly the first line except for that little extra feminine ending, the little extra unstressed beat, which again doesn't matter. You don't have to have that extra unstressed beat in every line. It'll work just fine without it. And then I went back to your original line while working on his tests, which indeed matches your second line, iambic trimeter, so that is done. That's good. So, the challenge here, Lucrezia, is to do that in all your stanzas. Easier said than done, I know, but that is what's going to make your poem sing. It's what it's going to make it solid and consistent and craft-wise perfect. So let's look at some other things because I'm not going to do that obviously with every single line. It took me, about 10 minutes to figure out how to fit those 2 lines into dactylic meter. And as you can see, I had to change things. I couldn't use sneak. I couldn't get boogers back in that line, so I changed it to snot, which is not the same as boogers, I admit. However, it's funny, right? I mean, he adds more snot to the box. It's got the sound with the snot in the box. So it's got some things going for it. And besides, it's a silly poem. You can just have some more fun with it. And it still has the repetition of box. It doesn't have the repetition of boogers, but you've already got the repetition of Benjamin Phlox. And you have the box. So you can play with those repetitions as well. What is being repeated in each line? So also those become a little more interesting each time. So I just wanted to take a moment to look at your rhyme since we're here. So we have right off the bat, desk and tests. We have a slant rhyme. I would really try to make these a perfect rhyme, especially since it's the very first stanza. I am not a huge stickler for that everything has to be a perfect rhyme. I enjoy a good slant rhyme now and then, but not in the first stanza and used judiciously. So this is another thing you're probably going to have to revise to find a perfect rhyme right there. Stone grown, that's fine. Dandy candy. Now here is something that's happened here. So let's say that you've made this line, it's now dactylic, right? You've now got your da 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 da, which everyone thought was dandy. This should, if I follow your rhythm from before, this should be iambic trimeter. Is it? Let's find out. Which everyone thought was dandy. It is indeed trimeter because, as you can see, there are 3 stressed beats, but you do have an extra unstressed beat here. Everyone. And there's an extra unstressed beat at the end. So that's 2 extra unstressed beats. Throws me off just a tiny bit. I'm not saying you can't do that because you actually can, but I would look at that. Then where this is supposed to be dactylic again, it's not. We've got Mary Jo, pause, took them home. So now we've got 2 stressed beats together. Mary Jo took them home and made them into candy. And now you've got your iambic trimeter again. So you can see very clearly here that the meter is not consistent enough. So this line with Mary Jo needs to be dactylic if we're going to go with that rhythm. Benjamin Fox, do you miss your box? This will need to be dactylic, but at least it's closer to the established meter in your first line. I really feel for you. Iambic trimeter, good. Have some candy, they're really dandy. Again, don't change your format, keep it all there. Have some candy, they're really dandy. This is not dactylic, so that would need to be changed. Thanks, I'll have a few. This goes a little more trochaic, but that's fine, it totally works. So it's your dactylic lines, it's your longer lines, your first and third lines in every stanza that you need to look at. Now, I did want to point out that you have dandy here, you have dandy here. You have candy here, you have candy here, which becomes an internal rhyme. So you might want to mix those rhymes up as well. Okay? I'm going to stop there. That's a lot for you to work on, Lucrezia. I think that, sorry if I'm saying Lucrezia and you actually pronounce it Lucretia or Lucrezia. I'm in Italy and I just pronounce things that now like Italians. I can't help myself. So you have a lot to work on. I do really like this mix that you have going on between dactyl and iambic. So work on it. See if you can, pound it out and really get that consistency happening. And then I think you have a really funny poem. All right? So off you go. All right, thanks again for submitting. And that's our episode for today. 2 very different examples of poetry for young people. Again, I thank the writers for sending those in. And again, I'm reminding you that you can do the same by clicking the link down below in the description. As always, do keep in mind that these are critiques off the top of my head. And so I'm certainly not hitting every single point and every single good thing that I'm finding either. But I do hope that you still find these critiques helpful. And now for this week's writing prompt. If you're anything like me, and you probably are, you have lots of writing block. Those moments when you think, nothing's coming to me, nothing's speaking to me, I can't think of anything to write about. And that's when I turn to wonderful books like Poem Crazy by Susan Goldsmith Wooldridge. It's a great source of inspiration and writing prompts. So she has one here. I happen to be reading this. And I was like, this is perfect for those moments when you're like, there's nothing to write about.
And it's just called, I'm calling it a bring me poem. So basically you go out into your garden and you find an object, a natural object, a flower, a leaf, a rock, a piece of dirt, whatever it is, and you name it. That's your first line. Then in the second line, you describe it. And then in your third line, and this is where the magic happens, you address it and say, bring me ... and then fill in. What do you want from that object? What could that object give to you? Here are a couple of really beautiful little examples from Poem Crazy. One is dead rose, crinkly as paper. Bring me love. Lovely. We have leaf, like a red spoon with a thin handle, or a heart balloon on a string. Bring me magic. And these are written by like 7th graders or something. So already pretty impressive. I love that heart balloon on a string. I mean, come on. So your task this week is to write a poem. This time it's a poem, a bring me poem, and bring us some magic. Once again, thanks for joining me here at Peek and Critique at the Lyrical Language Lab. And I thank again the authors for putting themselves out there for the benefit of us all. And I hope that you'll consider doing so too. Again, the link to submit is down in the description, and we'll see you here next week.